An excerpt from the letters of Lieutenant Samnael Evergrace, aide-de-camp to Commander Azar born of Draknor, leader of the Constant Legion. The first thing you got to know about the Legion, none of us really meant to be here. When you're a kid, you look at the world and you think, oh, I'm going to be a knight, a senator, a king. You get a little older and you think a little more seriously and you think, oh, I'm going to be a cobbler, like my old man, or a farmer, something humble. No kid ever dreams of joining the Legion. A mercenary digs their own grave. This work will wear you down into a foul weapon, and then you die. It's like asking for an extra helping of mud with your dinner. The best thing you can say for joining the Legion is at least the lorekeeper will remember your name. If you're lucky, they'll even pronounce it right. Most of us didn't mean to be here. We get here because somehow or another we made a mistake. We missed our chance. We fell in with bad folk. We bit when we should have just barked. And maybe when you've got nowhere else to go, you think, well, I'm good with a blade. You ain't. I could take orders. You better. So? Folks who wind up a mercenary don't go on to some greater vocation. Part of that's the taint of it. You deal in blood. You do what you're told. You kill for money. But part of it is that when you had nothing else, when everywhere else has already turned you out, the Legion welcomes you home. It is seen as some sign that all is not quite lost. As your troop brings the commander back to base, it means that the assault on the front gates served its purpose. It means the mission was a success. And it means that the Legion can move forward. They can cross the river, return to the east, and figure out what the heck they're going to do. So, I believe we should start with the after the mission section from the starting mission.
Follow along on page 181 of your hymnal.
Once the starting mission is completed, Legion players will select roles to portray during the campaign phase. We'll just go ahead and go in order because we have already been talking about who's going to play which Legion role. Matthew.
Hey, what's up?
You're playing the commander.
That's me.
Give me, again, we've seen the commander on screen a little bit. Give us, again, the information you've got about who this person is and what they're doing here.
Yeah, for sure. So during the sort of campaign phases, I will be portraying Azar of Draknor. He's an Archadian, which is one of our custom heritages. The cool thing about the Archadians, and by cool I mean cool with two tildes on either side, is that they used to have an empire that controlled this whole continent, basically, I think.
Right.
Actually, Serikali, our chosen, assassinated the last emperor and sort of ushered in an era of a democratic senate, which has survived up till now. TBD about the senate. We'll maybe get there at some point. But Azar specifically is really interested in a return to empire, the sort of glory of empire. He comes from this old noble family, and his life's dream had basically been to start the Archadian Empire back up. But this was a life's dream, long-term plan. We were on step, 1 of 7 or something like that in Azar of Draknor's cool plan to become an emperor again. or an emperor for the first time, rather.
Love
he
to
wasn't
have
the
a
emperor
cool
before.
emperor plan.
He's a very grounded dude. He has this sort of like public persona as being like a warrior poet. Think of all your favorite Klingons. He kind of looks like Iron Bull from Dragon Age Inquisition, except he is like only 6 foot and he doesn't have a weirdly tiny head, but he does have the same absolutely giant bull horns, which means that he does give a somewhat imposing impression. But even though he is, he acts like he's this, warrior poet, proud and chivalric, he's actually a bold and calculating guy who had this long-term plan. The important thing to say, I might be situating him like a villain in this, but I think it's important to state that Azar genuinely cares. Like, that's not a thing that I'm interested in exploring, is like, ooh, what if he was really shitty? Like, I think the more interesting thing is that he had like a shitty goal in his life, but he genuinely cares for all the members of the Legion and wants them to survive.
Cool.
Looking at pictures of Iron Bull, I can't believe we carried this guy.
Well, he's only 6 foot.
It's okay if he sucks.
Oh, yeah. I'm saying if you'll want to have characters that suck, that's perfectly fine. I'm saying that I personally am not interested in this guy just 100% sucking.
All right.
Okay.
The touchstones that I shared internally on the Discord, right, were like Roy Mutzdang from Full Metal Alchemist, right? Who's
one of my favorite fascists.
Yeah. Like, he has fashy vibes. Like, his goals kind of suck. He's like, oh yeah, I'm definitely going to turn this country into a democracy. Just wait, I have to become Führer first. It's going to be chill.
He's the worst character in this show, but he's a good guy.
Exactly. That's the sort of space that I want to play in.
Yeah.
But definitely not like, I'm going to take over the state alchemists and they'll be my personal army.
Right.
Cool.
He's very much young Anakin. Sorry, I just need to stop talking. He's very much young Anakin going like, oh, if only there was like a good emperor,
Right. Yeah. What if there was a fascism for the people?
Anyway, so initial pressure.
So pressure in this game is like the wolves nipping at your heels, basically. It's a representation of how bad it is in this given area. Right now, the Never have been pretty, I think, kind of shell-shocked in a way. From, maybe not from in part from your mission. You took out some pretty big hitters in the cathedral itself, but also Serikali really went to town on the forces at the front gate. So a lot of the stuff that had been stationed there is really in need of reorganizing. Pressure starts at 0.
Nice. All right. And then
you could do anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's not like it's immediately going to start building up or anything.
Absolutely not.
And then initial time. The Legion has made good time escaping from the Never, but the Never never rest and continue to march even while the Legion sleeps. Start with 3 ticks on the time clock. So time is a measure of how far is it to the end? How far is it before we get overtaken? Yeah, so the sooner we can make it to our sort of campaign destination, the better, because if these clocks run out, we're just done. Game ends.
Yep.
Which is why it's so important to keep pressure down, because pressure directly increases time.
Right.
And then finally, initial intel.
Initial intel, I don't think you have any right now. The Legion has had no chance to do recon, what with the battle and everything. Start with 0 intel. Which
is a real shame, because intel is a really helpful thing in terms of setting up extra information on missions that we want to pick.
How do you think Azar is feeling about, like, having just been sprung from torture and being expected to be like, all right, tell us what to do?
I mean, this is like kind of the norm for Azar. And I think that he's constantly performing, right? His whole life is a performance. And so having to perform like okayness and having to perform competency and having to perform like he has a plan is something that he's very comfortable falling in on. But in like quiet moments, like, he's steadying himself up against tent poles or up against crates that are being loaded into wagons and things.
Awesome. Okay. Next up, we have the Marshal. Gavin, you're playing the Marshal.
Yeah. So I actually have a kind of small scene.
Please.
We're in. Who was the rookie that was awake? Penthos?
Gemma was the one that was awake.
Okay. So we're in Gemma's tent. Maybe they're putting a rag on Penthos's forehead or something.
Mm-hmm.
And bursting through the tent is Lark, who just picks him up by his shirt, punches him in the gut, pulls them over her shoulder, and we cut to her throwing him in the dirt where a bunch of other rookies are standing at attention. We hear the voice, probably like a deeper voice than this. Like, I'm not going to do a voice for it, but
Sure.
sounds like a big man. Gemma, welcome to Hand Signs in the Legion, Remedial. The camera turns as Gemma looks up to see your big guy, bald head, sitting with his elbows on his knees, holding cigar in his mouth. The touchstone for this is Bill Goldberg,
All
who
right.
is a wrestler of some sort. I don't follow wrestling. Don't at me about Bill Goldberg, but he's the marshal, and
Outstanding.
he goes by Marshall. Doesn't go by his real name. He, him pronouns.
Yeah. Oh boy. Has the Marshal been doing this for a long time? Is this an established role for Marshal?
I'm guessing that Azar has been in the Legion longer than him.
Hmm.
I don't think he gives a shit about Azar's plans. At the end of the day, this is for money.
Interesting.
Like, the Brotherhood is big deal, you know. You don't want to watch your people die, yada yada. But he got into this because it paid, and he was good at it. So good that they made him Marshal.
Yeah. Do you have a particular cultural group for the Marshal? No is an
I don't
okay
know.
answer.
No,
We can
like
always suss
I
that
bet
out
there's
later.
like some fun speculation. Like, it's probably easiest to clock him as a Chimorti because anybody could be a Chimorti.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
But they're probably, fun rumors that people have and bets to see if they can get the Marshal
All
to
right.
divulge anything.
Everyone that's not Gavin, give me a cool rumor you've heard about Marshall.
I've got one.
Hit me.
He's really an Archadian. He filed his horns all the way down.
Shit.
Damn.
And uses face paint to disguise the nubs.
Shit.
That's cool.
That's real good.
I think there's a rumor that he's Tailos and once won a staring contest with the sky.
Wow. That's real good.
Oh man. Oh, I can't top those.
I've heard he hates music.
Can't stand it.
Does not like music.
Yeah, somebody asked him what his favorite music was, and he's like, "No, thank you."
No.
It was the Lorekeeper.
It's the opposite of the Gabriel Gundacker, is this music?
Yeah. Is this music?
Turn that off.
Oh,
The
I
music's
hate
already
it.
Off.
I hate
Good,
this.
Good.
Now, is the music
Bye.
coming from the green or the black? The black? I hate that.
If I ever have kids, they're not allowed to listen to music.
A rumor is that the cigar that he smokes is the same cigar he's been smoking for years.
Oh, that's really
He doesn't
good.
light it. He's never lit it.
Okay, good. You are in charge. You're in charge of a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
The Marshal in this game is like in charge a lot of like who is in the Legion and who goes on missions and stuff like that. But at this moment, I think you're concerned with morale, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Well, the opening mission was a success, which means that not only is everyone alive that needs to be alive, but they didn't crack the commander, which means they don't know more about the Legion than they otherwise would have. So morale starts at 9.
Excellent. That's good to hear. Next,
We have the quartermaster.
Howdy.
Kris, you're playing the quartermaster.
I sure am. Yep. So the quartermaster is Kravannder Sole. He pronouns. He's Chimorti by way of the southern islands where the Oileánder are from. He pretty much ran away from home as a teenager because he's like, I can make it, watch me, and then joined the funeral circus. Which when I was 15, I knew a lot of scene kids who seemed like they would have done that. So yeah, it's as part of being like, I'm Chimorti now. Change its name to Kravannder, which I think are these like little flowers that grow pretty much everywhere in Celestial. And it's just like, see, they can be anywhere, like me. What's good? And yeah, is newly the quartermaster. I think the last quartermaster did not survive that last battle. And then, Kravannder went looking for who to ask for supplies and saw like, oh, there's no one. And then someone else came along and was like, what do I do about supplies? And he was just there and it's like, give me a minute.
Oh, very good. Big
Amazing.
Kronk becoming the chef energy.
Yeah.
Love to inherit a ton of responsibility and be wildly unprepared for it.
One of the biggest responsibilities. Holy shit.
Yeah.
One of the things I don't think we've said on screen yet is that the head of like the Chimorti traveling merchant caravan / funeral parade / circus troops are called morticians. Was he a mortician?
I don't think so.
Okay, but he was just like a second in command or something who handled resources previously.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what sort of position one would have to be in to like be used to handling resources, but also not in charge of like resources for everyone. Because a thing that I've written is like basic description here is patchwork clothes, hates to be the bearer of bad news, and was ready for everything but this. So yeah, great place for it to have ended up. That's gonna be great.
Gosh, yeah. Okay, the quartermaster is in charge of. There's supplies. Supply is sort of like a catch-all for like various goods and sundries that is used to like get people what they need in order to do their jobs. And that it kind of works like coin in Blades in the Dark.
Yeah.
You start with 2 supply.
There's also stuff about initial food, materiel, and personnel.
Yeah, let's talk about that now. Yeah, so food. This is what you've been left with in the stores after your retreat. That sounds right. You have 1 food box.
Not enough food.
1 food. I think food still has like 3 uses.
Okay.
Yeah. Like real life, food has 3 uses. Not 3 different uses. 3 materiel. You haven't scrounged any additional resources or anything like that, but you start with 5.
Oh boy.
And I believe, Gavin, you can correct me on this if I'm getting this wrong, but that 5 can be spread between blackshot, food, horses, and religious supplies.
Yeah.
So you don't have to make those decisions right now. Let's talk about the personnel, and then maybe you can think about how you want to split up the material.
Sure.
So install non-Legion personnel. Select a mercy or an alchemist to start with.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so let's talk really quickly about these categories of people. There are alchemists who are like fantasy scientists that can transmute materials, that treat diseases, make alchemical weapons and stuff like that. If there's something to do with like battlefield science, then alchemists will usually be connected to them. And then the other category of people, these are mercies. In the book, they're bound to a healing goddess, and their power is that they can take on injuries unto themselves and then rapid heal them. The mechanical rule for this is that mercies can become wounded to give someone an extra healing tick whenever they're healing. We haven't talked a whole lot about like healing or how it connects to the world that we've sort of put together here. I'm interested to know if there's angles or unexplored links with traditions that people are interested in exploring.
I thought we'd talked about mercies as being it being somewhat mysterious, which is a normal way to say mysterious.
Right.
Where their like healing power came from. I vaguely remember a conversation like this.
I think that's probably true.
Yeah, in the base game, there's a god of mercy, hence the name Mercies, that has many different manifestations across all the different cultures and has an influence in all of the different cultures of the base game. So a mercy could be anyone blessed by that god in the base game. I don't know how we would do it in our game. In the previous game that I played, they were almost exclusively Mitzrayim. Because of their, the Mitzrayim's whole thing is protecting life. The other part of the mercy is like when they get wounded, they get the exact same wound you got. Like if you had a broken arm, their arm breaks to unbreak your arm. And then they have to heal that, faster than normal, but still like feel everything. So
Oof.
just like my chosen.
I think that's a pretty clear link there. I really like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So, as quartermaster, you get to decide whether or not we start with an alchemist or a mercy at our side already. We can find and recruit more as time goes on, but we start with one or the other.
Mm-hmm. Is that a thing I have to decide right now, or just generally before next?
Generally before next time, I think. Let me see if there's
I will say we don't have that many wounds.
Yeah, at the moment at least.
But we will want mercies in the future.
I expect people will get hurt. Yeah.
That is the quartermaster. We also have a lorekeeper in our midst.
Mm-hmm.
Devin, you're playing the lorekeeper.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
So, my lorekeeper is named Kael Osier, the Smiling Willow. They use they, them pronouns. And they are Oileánder. They're tall and thin and have long hair reminiscent of an old willow tree that has hints of brown, gray, and orange.
Cool.
Some of their hair is braided into symbolic knots, spelling out the names of recently deceased. So the way that you can use knots to represent language, they do with their hair. And they're often found counseling people through story and song. And they were adamant about organizing the music festival part of the Constant Legion ceremony that we had in the world building game.
Awesome.
And they were adamant about including artists from all cultures because they are friendly, warm, curious, and soft. I think the Smiling Willow is like a nickname given to them because despite this dark, terrible world and despite all of the despair, they always have a friendly, smiling demeanor, and they try to keep a positive mental attitude, and they try to instill that in others when times are dark. I imagine them as like very hippie, but like, what if hippies were nice and not posers?
And wore combat fatigues.
I grew up in Berkeley, California. I have a lot of opinions about hippies.
So one of the things in the initial setup is to remember the time at which the Legion was shattered, the battle that took place in and around the Omniculum of Zur. To tell the tale of the battle where the Legion's offensive was shattered. What mistake did the Legion make? Which broken did you face? What did you see? Who saved you? What did you learn?
Yeah. So we established in the like world building game that there was like this huge festival where they brought everybody together, and the Eyes of Smoke were like, this is it. When we get everybody to go fight in this battle, we're going to win and it's going to be awesome. Even though that was like a lie. And it was sort of a, what's the word?
Trick? Trap?
Sort of.
Deception?
Yeah. And I think the areas outside the town, the city, are very like hilly. And there was like, do we think they never have like camps? Like how did they like, are they just endlessly marching? Do they stop? Like what do we think the vibe?
I think that there are times where they stop in order to like not get spread out. Although I do think sometimes they wind up getting spread out.
Yeah.
But part of what makes them so dangerous as opposed to just like a regular undead force is that they do have commanders, and their commanders do use tactics and do issue commands that are obeyed in a certain capacity, right? So they don't have individual intelligence and prerogative in the way that we might imagine an individual soldier. So they don't have like personal tents or even like individual upkeep to do. But almost in like RTS video game sense of like I'm going to move this squad here, and then this squad here will basically stand there until such time as I need them to begin moving again.
Yeah. So I think there was like intel that there was like a group of them out in these hills, like outside of the town. And the command was basically just like, okay, here's where we send everybody. We're going to like hide in the hills and we're going to surround them. And then we're going to descend on this like force that was just curiously waiting there. And what I think actually ended up happening is that the Never had the same plan. So they were completely surrounded from all sides. They didn't see all of these Never forces because they were hidden in the troughs of these hills. And there was just way more forces there than they expected to find. And the forces were completely obliterated. And I think maybe some of the people ran away. Do we think that so we mentioned two of the possible chosen that we came up with. Do we think that one of those was already broken for a while? Because I know one of them becomes broken here at this moment.
Several of them became broken here.
Okay, you think so?
Oh, that's just in the book.
Yeah. I think those could be one of the ones that we came up with, or it could be another one too, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
I think the Archadian one, the one that I'd come up with, I think that one maybe has been broken for a while.
Okay. Sweet.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that maybe somebody escaped and was able to report like how badly this fight went back at the camp. And they claimed to have seen Kashavan, the chosen of the Oileánder, walk into a copse of trees. And then that copse of trees caught fire and nobody saw them again.
Good sign.
In terms of who saved you, I think there were only people that were able to save themselves and the people directly around them from fleeing because the battle was overwhelming. There was no victory in those fields, in those hills. And I think what was learned in that fight was, despite the eyes of smoke apparently knowing all of the futures to come, that maybe not depending so much on prophecy and depending on the hard intel that we have in the moment. People, even though the fight went very badly, I guess maybe people are still believing in the Consonant Legion as the like way to get through this. Trying to find a deep trust in each other now that they know they can't trust prophecy.
Life at camp is vibrant, messy, and subject to the tremendous pressure of the undead closing in. After the squad finishes the mission, the lorekeeper sets a back camp scene. The scene you choose must be chosen from the list based on the current morale of the Legion. Marshall, what is our current morale?
It is 9.
9. That means we'll have a high morale scene.
Even though we technically, mechanically have high morale, the Legion did just face a massive defeat. So I think the first one, Soldiers Hold a Remembrance for the Fallen, might be an interesting place to go. Especially because as the lorekeeper, I'm going to be doing a similar thing later on in missions when people start dying for real, or dying mechanically. So that would be kind of an interesting one to do now in regards to remembering the fallen of the big battle that just took place.
What does a remembrance look like?
I think it looks like a lot of things for a lot of different people. And I would like to get y'all's opinions about like like little mini scenes that we see of like how people are grieving and how people are dealing with the current reality of things. In the last mission, we saw my specialist, Aoife, who was crying when she got back to camp because she had a level 1 harm of being despaired. But I think that was also related to her feeling the loss of Kashravan, the chosen for people. And I think there is a small group of, or maybe a big group of Oileánder people that are all just kind of sitting in a circle and crying. They're having a cry circle. And I think that's not all we see, though. I think there are other types of remembrances happening with different groups of people, depending on who they lost. I think it hits the Oileánders especially hard because they lost their chosen. They lost the god, the voice of the god that they follow. But I think Kael, the Smiling Willow, is tending to all of these different groups simultaneously. I think they are curious about what grief looks like or not so much curious. I think they have a good understanding of what grief looks like in different cultures. I think they've served in the Legion for a while as a lorekeeper. And I think they are just kind of going around to different groups of people and trying to give them the comfort that they need in this moment. Does anybody else have any thoughts about like what grief looks like at the camp?
So I've kind of set up the Chimorti as like traveling morticians and as part of their thing, right? As we've been sort of gesturing at, they are very like gothic pop punk as sort of the vibe. So I think that they are holding a whole bunch of funerals. I don't know if this Legion has like absorbed a whole like Chimorti troop, like if there's like a mortician that sort of like decided to travel with us or something like that, but there's enough Chimorti here, and they would have spent, their whole lives traveling from place to place helping to hold rituals and funerals. So I think there's just a whole bunch of funerals being held, right?
Are these funerals that are like literal, like we have the coffin, we're carrying the coffin, we're like doing like a physical thing, or do you think it's more like more?
I think it's much more varied than that.
Okay.
So I described the Chimorti as being able to like bury you in any kind of way that like your culture sort of would prefer, whether that means burning the body, burying the body, setting the body adrift in a body of water, or doing like a sky burial of like leaving, taking apart the body and leaving it for natural decomposition, or for birds of prey or birds of carrion to like come and pick it clean, right? So I think we see all of these and more, like ways of disposing of the dead, or not even if you have a dead body, but just of remembering the dead, right? We have a river here. So there are Chimorti who are putting barges together. And if they don't have a body, they're putting something that was important to that person on a tiny raft and letting it go.
Oh, I love like a couple of little flaming boats just kind of floating down the river out to the sea.
And I think there's a bigger flame as well, right? There's probably a big funeral pyre, and like several bodies are on that, again, along with small tokens, things that people left behind when we don't have a body, because for one reason or another, we don't have a body. We'll maybe see them later in a way we don't want to see them. But this is saying goodbye.
This is like a grim sequel to what we had going on in the world building, where people were coming together to form the Constant Legion to like fight, and now they're coming together to grieve the losses of that fight. And I think the lorekeeper, Kael, is, I think they are like walking through these various camps, just kind of like singing softly to themselves. I think they might be waving like a censer kind of thing, like some sort of a vessel, metallic vessel, like on a rope that they kind of like swing gently, and there's just a nice, pleasant smell coming out of it to try to cover up the various grim smells of death that are in the camp. Does anybody else want to focus on anything here in this moment?
So I think the Mitzrayim light one candle collectively.
Is there like a certain ceremonial candle holder for this, or is it just a plain candle?
It's a plain candle. There's a song that goes with it. They sing a Kaddish. When you're at war, there are certain privileges, there are certain obligations that you are allowed to ignore. One of them is mourning.
Mm.
So maybe in a year from now, they will have the actual mourning. But for now, they're lighting this one candle, they're singing this one song, and burying that shit.
Putting a rain check on grief.
Yeah.
Cool. Interesting.
I think there's. I was trying to think of like what Taylor's people do. I think like in part of their even naming thing is just like, yeah, here's what you do. Here's like a thing that you're known for. So I think like part of their grieving is just like finding out, once they can see who's gone, sort of like anybody who knew them will like tell a story about them, and then everybody who is like listening to the story, like when that story is done, everybody sort of like thanks that person for what they did. They're just like a collective like, thanks for what you did while you were here. And everybody kind of like, says thank you, and then kind of keeps it moving to the next person. But it's not like it's like final round of applause, but a lot less celebratory than that.
Almost like a wake.
Yeah, it's just like we're just gonna like see you off.
I think that the Arcadians are interesting in that they have kind of this split degree of culture of like empire, but also they're like the forestlands that they came from originally, and so they have this weird kind of mashup of things that have been like syncretically linked together. But what has kind of persisted through that is that more than any other culture, I think Arcadians are like very individualistic and all about like dealing with your personal relationships and your personal bonds and links. And so I think from the imperial tradition, I think that Arcadians get funeral pyres. But stemming from that, I think that there is this tradition of making your own individual goodbye, which usually takes the form of like, if you have it available, it's good to take like a knuckle bone or something that's been left over from the pyre, and finding a tree and burying it at the base of the tree. But I think that there's also this understood tradition of like, if you have a gift from that person, you can bury that as like that means just as much as burying a piece of that person. Or even if they were in some far off place and there's just no way for you to like have made it or something like that, if you find a stone or purchase something of value, or even something, not particularly of value, but that makes you remember that person, that lets you kind of come to grips with like what that person meant to you in your life, and sort of bury them yourself by just scooping some of the dirt from beneath the base of a tree and laying it to rest there. There's sort of this sense of like, even for people that weren't necessarily your friend, but people that were linked to you in powerful ways, there's this sense of like, your journey is over, but your journey empowered and intersected with my journey in this way. Reckoning with that.
Cool.
It is hard because there's not many trees.
Yeah. And I think in terms of like burial rites, I think the Oileánder people, I think they just find a place out in nature where people who know that person would have liked, maybe a beautiful scene in nature that they would have liked, and they just leave the body there to make it part of the landscape. They don't bury it, they don't burn it. They just become part of nature.
Yeah. I wonder if maybe even like the forests near the islands and stuff like that, there's typically like trees that have almost like magically evolved to accommodate for this kind of thing.
Like the trees have nests for like certain bugs that are really good at decomposing bodies.
Yeah. Like sort of built themselves in such a way to be convenient receptacles for people who've met their end.
Yeah, I love that.
So there are real-world cultures that practice sky burials, which are kind of what you were describing, Devin. They tend to be in like generally very mountainous places where there's not a lot of soil to actually bury people.
Or very cold places.
Or very cold places, yeah. So this is like a real thing. In most cases, they don't just like dump the body, though. Generally, there's like a thing of ensuring that the body's not going to like get anybody sick by rotting, right?
Yeah.
Which is usually, it's done in a number of different ways. Sometimes literally just like, this is a little gross, but like, you know, taking off all the things that can rot off a person. Or like specifically trying to attract, you know, birds of prey or other things that will just take the body apart faster.
Yeah.
So I think it's a thing worth being intentional about of like, hey, you know, real people do this in the real world. And also thinking about, you know, if these are any of the things that you're interested in incorporating.
Yeah. I do think it's part of like one of the last things you described of like putting the bodies in places where they know they'll be eaten by other living creatures, because like part of their spiritual culture is all about like the cycle of life and birth and growth and death, and how what you were becomes various other things afterwards. I think that's sacred to them. So I think they are positioned in ways where they can make that cycle easier.
Right. And worth noting, yeah, if you, we both just, Brennan and I just put warnings in our own Discord here, but if you're looking at this later, warning, if you Google sky burial, you're going to see real human dead bodies.
Ah, yeah, fair.
Does the Legion have a tradition?
Well, I think part of that is what the lorekeeper does. I think as they're passing from group to group, they are talking with the people, learning the names of those that have fallen, and recording them for now. They might incorporate their names into their hair later, but you know, that'll take time.
Proceed to the bookkeeping step of the mission phase. Advancing is mandatory.
I'd prefer we advance for a couple of reasons. One, technically we're still very close to the Never Forces. Two, mechanically, I get to roll 2d6 take the lower if we don't have time pass.
Can you read from advance to tell us what specifically is happening here?
Advance. The last action of the Legion is for the commander to decide whether they are going to order the Legion to advance and along which path. We only have one option this time. Each time the Legion advances, time is increased by rolling pressure and adding an appropriate amount of ticks to the time clock. As a reminder, this is our, like, if this fills all the way, we're just donezo. If the Legion runs out of time while advancing, even if they are advancing to Skydacker, aka our final position, we haven't named it yet, they are cut off by the undead, and the Legion is lost. So, that is our situation. I don't think there's anything I can do but make the... I don't think I can make the pressure -1, so I'm just going to go ahead and roll the 2d6.
Okay.
2. Okay, good roll. So only 1 tick of our time. For the listener, we are currently at 4 ticks out of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of our first of 3 time clocks. So we are 4 30ths to game over.
Uh-huh.
So I think what this is, right, is I think that Azar had instructed the various Legion roles, both like mechanically and in fiction, that there was to be this time for grieving, but there was to be a very specific amount of time for grieving. And once it was done, he is going through the camps, right? He is loudly, commanding, get those boxes up and, get that horse together and et cetera, all the normal things that a commander would say that I know very well. And it seems almost through his force of personality that the Legion is pulled from this grief towards our next location.
I think there's a real sense of if the commander was like at death's door yesterday and telling us to do this now, then we have no excuse not to jump up and do as we're told.
And in the quiet moments when everyone looks away to pack their things, he just grasps his arm tight.
Okay. You advance.
Where do we end up, Brendan?
We wind up in a place that had a very different attitude about it a couple of weeks ago. We are at the Consonant Steppe, sort of a broad steppeland between the Great River and the mountains that rise in the east. It's known for its grassy plains, its rolling hills. And very recently, it was the site of this gathering of these coalition forces, the Chosen of Zel Sha'el, and the Legion itself from storied history, all coming together to swear oaths, to celebrate victory, and to marshal their forces for the great assault. Now it is a ruin. It's every great music festival you've ever seen, except it was hit by the apocalypse.
So immediately after every great music festival you've ever seen.
Exactly. Red plastic cups everywhere.
God damn it.
Smoldering and burnt ground, blasted by flame and touched by blight. Twisted, leafless trees, standing silent above half-devoured corpses, dead soldiers, and parts of horses. Dust clouding the air and obscuring the forms of the Never shambling in the distance, in pockets of 2 or 10. Wreckage of siege weapons and encampments, hastily uprooted to cross the river for the final battle. Wide-eyed, traumatized infantry, standing and staring into the distance at nothing. Soldiers huddling in corners, under tarps, talking in hushed tones, of retreat, of escape, or simply of what they saw. Refugees, quiet, as scared of you as they are of the Never. So, this is where you find yourself.
I think time still passes. So +1 time and +1 pressure,
Okay.
as well as the advance that just happened.
Okay, so we're at 5 of 30.
And -1 food.
Gotta eat.
Just a use.
Yes. Just
Well,
a use of food.
Yeah.
If that's the case, then Commander Azar, I've got bad news for you.
Yo, what's up?
Add... Oh, it's even worse than I thought. Okay, it is...
Yeah.
There's a lot of Never around here. Like, there's... Considering where you were just running away from, there is a startling amount of Never here.
Mm-hmm.
I need you to roll 1d6 and add that much to pressure.
Fuck.
Wait, what?
When advancing, add +1d to your pressure.
Where is this from?
This is on page 376, the special rules for this area.
Oh, jeez
Oh,
Louise.
I'm sorry. I forgot that this game goes hard.
Gavin, I
It's
can't
gonna
believe
be
you
a-
said, "Oh, teacher, you forgot about our homework."
Uh,
No, I was going to apply it at some point. I just wasn't sure when. This seems like a good...
Yeah.
All right, 1d6. Let's go.
1d6. What's the worst you could roll?
Here we go. A 2. Not that bad.
Second best thing you could have rolled.
Yeah. So we are at, for those keeping track at home, 3 pressure. We're at 5 of 30 time.
Quartermaster, you're up. You have 9 morale right now, which means you have 2 free actions.
Mm-hmm.
Gavin, really quick, would you tell us the 5 different types of campaign actions? Just the quick summary.
yeah. So there's acquire asset. It's a little different than the Blades of the Dark acquire asset, where the things you find, you keep. Liberty, which is how the Legion reduces stress and also boosts our morale. Recruit, which lets us get 5 rookies. Rest and relaxation, which is how the Legion restores health. Long-term project, which is the same as Blades in the Dark long-term projects.
Okay, so in this area, I described, there's some other soldiers here. They are blasted. These are the people that, scattered at the time of defeat. Your Legion are the people that were disciplined enough to, make it back to base, hold down the base until other people could make it back. These are people that were just, lost to the wilderness. That is to say, you can recruit these people. However, they're in no shape to fight. The quartermaster may start a 4 o'clock long-term project to feed and rehabilitate them. When it's complete, the marshal may add the 5 rookies to the Legion.
What's unclear to me is whether you need to officially recruit to grab these people. It just says you can bring them along, but they're in no shape to fight.
Yeah, that would be a long-term project, not a recruit.
Yeah, that was my understanding.
You could also start a long-term project for something else completely separate.
Yeah, build us a time machine so we can get back some of this time.
In our game, the first thing that the players put a long-term project on was to make those flying squirrel suits.
Jesus Christ.
Go on.
You know, when you're a GM, sometimes you just gotta let them
Do what they want, yeah.
what they're gonna do.
Even though in your heart of hearts you were saying, that's not grimdark.
What is the... Like, are they trying to cross the mountains faster than the undead? Is that the intention?
No, they just wanted to fly.
Oh, boy.
Don't you want to fly?
Yes. Let's do this. I want to hear from the lorekeeper, the marshal, and the commander. Like, this isn't a conversation. Just, like, give me your internal monologue. Just, what are you hoping gets done here?
Personally, I think the specialists need to reduce some stress.
Okay. That sounds in line with what Willow would want to have happen. Marshall.
One use of food is not enough. Or one package of food is not enough.
Commander.
I think that Azar is, this might even be a somewhat, I know you said this wasn't an in-person thing, or in fiction thing, but this might even be a little bit of a round table. And I think Azar really wants to impress upon the leadership of the Legion that we need to get further east as quickly as possible. Because he's assuming, the trouble is west. So the sooner we go east, the more time we'll have to be able to lick our wounds and to recruit and deal with everything. So we just need to hold on for that time. So yeah, getting rid of stress and getting the food so we can make the journey are the things that he would focus on.
Noted. I mean, I think I was leaning towards Liberty anyway, because, most of our specialists have a whole bunch of stress. So that's one of them. I also need to finish picking the supplies we already have. So far, I'm like, we should have food and Blackshot. I'm probably going to increase the food, and I kind of like the idea of us having horses, because a bunch of the people who are supposed to have those horses are dead.
Sure.
Yeah.
Horses are the one creature that can't be never-fied.
So far.
They are more unknowable than the never. So.
Are our horses normal? Do we just have normal horses in this world?
Are any horses normal? What if we have those terrifying anime horses, which are like way thinner than a real horse ever was, and they look more like what are those dogs with the really long snouts?
Borzois.
Borzoi?
Yeah, they look like borzois, but horses.
Horses.
Horses, yes.
You
just have very lanky, very furry horses. Blech.
That's disturbing.
What's the
I kind of like the idea of horses with like the degree of physical variation as dogs do.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's good.
Like, these are all horses, but a horse could be a lot of different things.
What was the anime? I'm sorry to bring up the anime. What was the anime where they
it's just an anime
burger,
podcast. It's fine.
The burger economy? Does anybody know what I'm talking about?
Burger economy.
No.
It was one of those isekai animes where you get sucked into an MMO or whatever.
Is this the Demon Lord is in the real world and he's a
No,
part-timer?
not that one. No, this is a different... I mean, they're all the same. Every isekai anime is the same. But in this one specifically, they make an economy based on burgers. And they have some of the worst anime horses. Yes, Log Horizon.
That was
one
of my
favorites.
favorites.
Find a picture of a Log Horizon horse.
Honestly, of isekais.
Really?
Well, it's mostly for that scene where a guy was like, nobody asked to be born. You didn't ask to be born in the other world. You didn't ask to be born here either. That doesn't mean you get to blow up trains.
But yeah, Log Horizon has some of the worst anime horses I've ever seen. They look kind of like llamas sometimes. Sometimes they do just straight up look like Borzois.
Sometimes.
Yeah, so I think these are what our horses look
That's
like.
just
They are
Scooby Doo. What the hell?
horrors. Yeah, it's straight up Scooby Doo here. Yeah. So I'll note that everybody but one of our specialists has at least 4 stress.
We had a really stressful time.
Yeah.
I've seen worse.
Okay, so yeah, a liberty seems like a good thing to do.
Should we describe how the people chill and what it looks like?
Yeah, sure. If it stops us from talking about Scooby Doo as a horror.
Everyone, give me like a 1 sentence on like your specialist cutting loose.
Yeah, Aoife's is really short. Her ceremonial like stick that she had that had like disintegrated on the mission. She basically goes out foraging to find a new stick. It's kind of like finding a new save point. And she probably had good memories of the festival, so the stick will remind her of the festival.
Yeah,
when things were good and not terrible.
Oh,
Nabane?
Sure. So similarly to Kaio, Nabane is still gasping from the last mission, which I think is just like a dry cough that he just like has held on to through this time. But I think that like sitting is one of the ways where the sort of the impacts of this are the least bad. And I think that what this looks like is in Nabane's backpack, which is now just a part of this character, he's pulled out like a big scrapbook, a scrapbook / like journal, and like he's journaling to sort of keep a record of what is happening so he can later go back and actually think it through.
Cool. Lark?
I think Lark is embroidering her cloak. It's the same color thread as the cloak itself, so you wouldn't have noticed. But there's some intricate designs in there of just, I don't know, leaves, maybe letters, words, names, those kinds of things.
Is there something new that you're adding now?
Yeah, probably the word for stone.
Kaya, thoughts?
yeah. I think Kaio might be trying to. I think seeing all these people stressed out is like. I mean, it's to put it lightly, it's a huge bummer. So I think they might be. I can't tell whether. I guess it could be both if they got the time. But either like whittling little trinkets for people, and then just like trying to give them those and be like, here's like, I don't know, here's something, but like very few points in any resolve skill. So like not a people person. Either that or like trying to, I don't know, like what is the equivalent of like summer camp icebreakers, but for a traumatized army?
Oh,
Boot
like
camp.
The gentlest boot camp, though, because it's just like, I know everyone's going through a lot. Let's just like try to keep moving. Remember what you can do. Like
almost like a top that or a die that has like prompts for exercises and stuff like that. Or like, all right, like I've been at multiple game studios now where they'll have like, all right, it's push-up time, and everyone gathers together, and you roll like a 10-sided die, and it comes up 7, and everyone's like, all right, squats, and everyone is like, squats, squats, squats. And then they roll the die again, and it's like, it's crunches. Or maybe it's something like that that's like some sort of a prop, that could very easily be like a spinning top or something like that.
I hate that.
I don't like it either.
If I found out about that, I would quit. Be like, no.
I mean, it was employee organized. It wasn't like my bosses were making me do this.
Okay. So it was optional.
100%, yeah.
Okay. Less hatred.
So I dig that. I think they make a little thing, and then they like go around to people to like, how are you feeling? Up for like some activity? Rolls die. Let's jog in place.
I like
So
that.
yeah, that's them.
Because definitely there will be some Legionnaires that are like, I'm not doing this. This is stupid. I run.
Yeah, absolutely not.
But then there's going to be some people that are like, nope, this is good. This is good for me, actually. This This keeps the demons away.
And there are going to be some people who are on duty, like for guarding or whatever, and like, man, I can't believe I missed workout time.
Yeah. Kris, you have to come up with a good name for workout time.
I will do that, but names are hard.
In the meanwhile, we need a second campaign action.
God, we sure do.
Maybe there's something where we could modify our wagons and carts and stuff. Like enforce the wheels or something. With like the effect potentially being, one less die on an advance or one less effect on when we advance in terms of the time cost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess we would have to figure out what the mechanical effects of that, or the hopeful ones, would be from now.
I guess we could do it when the clock finishes, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, I have put one resource tick into for a laborer who probably needs a name. I don't know. People need names generally.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this sounds like a long-term project.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Pick a specialist to lead the project. They roll the appropriate action and mark segments in the project clock based on the result. So what are we doing? We're trying to upgrade our, the actual mechanisms of the Legion's wagons?
Maybe it could be like iron wheels instead of wooden ones.
Yeah, you can reduce drag in a number of ways, right? But and even just making sure that wagons that might have been broken in the chaos after the defeat, right? They're probably not working super well right now.
Yeah.
Oh, do an audit
Mm-hmm.
of the wagons.
Oh, good, great. Kravannder is just like, okay, I just need to know what there is. So it's just taking stock of everything, seeing what of the things that are still here can be fixed, and fixing those.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which specialist are you ordering to do that for you?
I'm gonna say Kaio, because builder.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is a 4-step clock.
Sweet. I'm going to current project. Gotta go fast.
And we have one laborer, so it gets one automatic tick every downtime.
Yeah. Why doesn't everyone figure out who this laborer is?
I'd love if we could get another Archadian, or is it Talios or Talios, Kris?
Tylos.
Tylos. Okay. Because we have an overabundance right now of the other ones, I think. Relatively. Especially the Chimorti. I'm glad everybody likes the circus goths. Maybe like a big, or rad Arcadian blacksmith lady.
Ooh.
Cool, short curved horns.
With a bunch of rings on them because they make rings in their smith.
Oh, that's sick. Yeah.
That does whip.
And then they usually have short names, which are a descendant of the Arcadian longer names, right?
Yeah.
We just grab from this list.
What's a name for hammer?
Myrrh is pretty good.
Myrrh the blacksmith.
Or I'm going to type in Hammer Thesaurus.
Mallet? Mal.
Yeah, Mal's pretty good.
Mal's good. I enjoy Mal.
All right, Mal the she-her big Arcadian blacksmith.
Into it. So having a laborer sign gets you a tick automatically.
Mm-hmm.
Then your specialist rolls to see how it goes.
Crit, 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 crit.
Fingers crossed, but I'm not gonna promise anything. So yeah, I'm rolling rig for this, so that'll be 2d6.
Cool.
It's a 6 though.
It's
Oh.
a 6.
So that fills the clock.
It sure does.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. What do you
Mal's a
find
fucking pro.
as part of your audit?
Maybe enough metal to make new horseshoes for the horses, so that I don't know, they're good for a while. Yeah, being able to reinforce the wheels so they don't need to be repaired as often, so that they can handle whatever terrain is coming up next. If we hit rocks and they're not wood and won't just I don't know, splinter or get broken up real quickly if we have to go fast.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think what I'll do mechanically as a result of that is I'll relieve pressure by 1.
Nice.
Oh.
Okay. Are you going to take any more actions? You can spend supply for extra actions.
We are pretty low on some.
And we were kind of scraping for options anyway, so we might be good unless we wanted to do some healing. But
I can. So Nabane, I may not play Nabane, but Nabane can deal with level 1 harm.
Right.
So I wouldn't worry about level 1 harms, or at least when there's just one level 1 harm each.
Agreed.
Sure.
Also, related to the harm, did we want to decide if we had an alchemist or a mercy?
Yes, that's the other thing. I think I lean mercy just because people are going to get hurt.
People are already
I
hurt.
would rather... True, that's true. I mean, they're going to get more hurt worse.
okay, in which case, I think we move on to the last step of the campaign phase. Commander, decide if the Legion will advance.
Would I know what's, like, next? Because there's only one option.
You would absolutely know what's next. And you would know what it is that you stand to gain from sticking around here, too. So,
Right.
up ahead, the road passes through the large town of Sarpat. It's a Mitzrayim trade hub, nestled between where the steppe becomes the desert. It was hustling and bustling when you passed through here on your way to the constant steppe. If nothing else, there ought to be supplies there for you to try and, like, fill your coffers before you begin making a journey in earnest. There's also probably going to be people there that need things from you.
Yeah.
Around here, obviously, there's a lot of never, but that means you have opportunities to try and hit some of them while they're separated from the main force as assault missions. Assault missions always improve morale, although you're technically maxed on morale right now. So,
right now.
yeah. It is impossible for anyone to be happier than they are right now.
Jesus.
Pans to all the Oileánders crying.
Yeah. This is as good as it gets.
What's better than this?
There's also a moment here to take stock of the situation and go, okay, we got beat bad. What's going on? What's going on with the Never? What do they have at their disposal? You could do a recon mission, trying to figure out what the enemy's up to, what's going on in the surrounding area, try and get some intel.
So I'm personally leaning on moving again. Not even looking at the book, right? Just purely from Brendan's description, this place sounds barren and like not like a place we can get a lot of stuff out of.
Okay.
That's where I'm leaning, but I am interested. I think that Azar, despite his imperial ambitions, is interested in hearing from, the experts around him. So if people have alternative ideas here, I'd be up for them.
A lot of fresh meat here. If you catch my drift.
Time ticks ever forward. Perhaps we should spend it in places where there is more bounty.
I just launches into a very detailed list of the findings of the audit. It's just sounding more optimistic than the last time you talked to it. I think it's more less despairing about if you wanted to spend more time here, I think we could make up the distance between here and wherever is next quicker than I thought last time we spoke.
Right.
I think Sarikali speaks up at this point. Probably the first time anyone's heard her say anything in a couple of days, and says, "In the steppes here, there are people. There are things. There are opportunities here that will be lost once the Never sweep through. Time is of the essence, but it might do us well to know what it is we're leaving behind." And then she looks at Azar and says, "Of course, the decision is yours."
I think Azar, expression unchanging, with his one good eye, looks at Sarikali for as long as he can before the light of her forces him to look away. And he just says, "Who am I to go against the Senate? We'll stay."
OATHSWORN is an actual play podcast created by
Devin Nelson.
Gavin Fregeau.
Kris Allison.
Matthew Guzdial.
and me, Brendan McLeod. All music for the show is created by Devin Nelson. Find it and more at devindecibel.bandcamp.com. Find a link to their music and any of the games that we've played in the podcast description. Follow us at OathSworn Pod on Twitter or OathSworn on co-host. Until next time.